Since this is the first video I'm doing in the cancelled game series, let me just state that I want to make this into an actual series. But to do so, I actually have to make sure people want to see it. So if you enjoy this idea, comment or like the video just so I know if I should even continue. So let's get to our first game. 8 Days. Does anyone actually remember this? I was beyond hyped for this, and no pun intended, since that was like the PS3 logo back in when it was first announced. It was just like thrown everywhere, beyond. It was very annoying. Regardless, this game looked like it would mix these really cool ideas from all these different games at its time and make it into a fantastically fun set-piece type game. It was first shown at E3 in 2006. This trailer showed how the game would blend combat and kind of this cutscene type world into really just smooth transactions. It was great. It also looked to contain an insane amount of set pieces, basically the biggest one being the diner part, which would later actually become the staple of the Uncharted series with those huge set pieces, which is funny, and we'll get to that a little bit later of why this game might have been canceled for that reason. You can also see in the kind of demo that they've released that it definitely heavily relied on teamwork, more so than even games like Army of Two. You'd switch weapons on the go with each other, you'd even switch around each other and go over each other in cover, and of course there was a lot of flanking. And honestly, the amount of teamwork looked 10 times better than most games that we get with co-op focus these days. We don't know if it was actually going to be a sandbox game or a straight-on shooter. I've heard that it was going to be just kind of a linear shooter, but I'm watching this scene where this guy's hanging off a cement block and he's shooting these cars, and honestly it looks very much like an open world game. Maybe not so much in a Grand Theft Auto sense, but more in the sense of like Mafia 2 or even Wheelman, where they give you a world where you can drive around and stuff. There's no driving with the main characters, but I only can assume that there is a part when you can actually drive with them, seeing as shooting on the go or holding on or shooting outside a window is very much in the demo. It also this could be just a really long, awesome set piece, but I hardly believe that they put this much time and effort into it without at least letting you explore this world that they made. Also, we can see that co-op is kind of separated from each other, so you can actually be yards or hundreds of feet away from each other, which would very much mean that it was probably going to be an online co-op game as well as an offline co-op game. And that's definitely something that would have been kind of at its time in 2008 pretty new. You know, Gears of War did it back then and so on, but this would have been a big push for the Sony franchise, in my opinion, for co-op. Now, why was 8 Days canceled? That's a good question. I looked up some information, tried to get different points of view, and I think one of the major reasons is that it's a new IP. We know the risk of releasing one, especially on the next-gen system when they're first announced. Sony seemed to have a lot of faith in the London studio division, but not enough to actually finish this game or put more resources into it. 8 Days was just, I guess, too risky for them. Also, in my opinion, London Game wasn't all that great of a studio. It might have had some fans from the Getaway, but the company never had a major hit before. It would be probably one of the biggest reasons that Sony kind of just gave up on them or gave them limited resources to begin with. Another major reason people believe it was canceled, and this is definitely a pretty good guess, is that it's very similar to Uncharted in terms of set piece anyway. However, this looked like Uncharted only in the sense of the scale and epicness. The co-op online and off was a major selling point, and honestly, I think this could have been way better and way bigger in terms of sales than Army of fucking 2. I hate that damn franchise, but anyway, I guess Sony just didn't have enough faith in these guys, or they were just too busy putting their resources into Uncharted 2 and 3 after the major hit of Uncharted 1. We might never know the real reason why this game was canceled in 2008. Maybe it sucked. Maybe it cost too much. Maybe the developers just didn't like the way it was turning out. Either way, we'll never get this game, which is a shame because I think it looked pretty dang good. So for now, this is the first episode of 8 Days and why it was canceled, and gonna get in the little glimpse of what it could have been. And sadly, we'll never get.